Welcome back to Off the Court, the podcast where we take a deep dive into the science behind the movements that make athletes excel. I'm your host, Rachel, along with co host Lexi, and today we're going to be talking about the different types of ankle injuries as well as foot injuries that occur at the foot and how to prevent them in the first place.
Yes, it's so great to be back and to explain to our audience, the various injuries and how those injuries can be prevented, which is arguably one of the most important parts of any sports or any activity that you're going to be engaging in. So, really excited for this.
So, first, we're just going to be starting with answering some of your questions as listeners, given that you guys are the reason we do this in the first place and are passionate about this topic. So, first, we have listener Fadeaway Jumper 2000 who wants to know if they are more likely to have an Achilles rupture than, say, a younger athlete. They commented, I play basketball at Y on the weekends and my buddy popped his Achilles last year. Am I more likely to have an Achilles rupture playing as a middle-aged male?
Yeah, so this is a really great question and one that we are kind of discussing, and we figured that it would be really great if it could be answered by a good friend of mine, Keith. He is actually one of the program coordinators at one of the YMCA's in Boston, and he is also joined by one of his amazing coworkers, Kimmy, who happened to be a former basketball player herself and a coach. So thank you both so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity for being on here. Um, and it's an honor to be on one of your guys' episodes.
I parrot what Keith says, indeed. So it is so awesome to share a common passion, which is the game of basketball. To begin answering the question from the listener, in short, yes, as a middle-aged male playing basketball, you may have slightly higher risk of experiencing an Achilles tendon rupture compared to younger players. Achilles tendon ruptures are more common in individuals over the age of 30. Recreational activity tends to be the leading injury mechanism of Achilles ruptures, with basketball being the highest, being a sport with one of the higher rates.
Interesting. Could you go more into detail of how players tend to sustain this Achilles injury and maybe like what you may experience for all those listeners out there who are wondering?
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority of the ruptures occur with quick, rapid, explosive movements from like the resting position. The resting position of the ankle is just when you're standing, it's the angle that it's sitting at. So jumping is a great example of this, and in basketball we see this frequently, whether it's when you're rebounding, taking a jumper, hopefully making it, and then or blocking shots, or if you're crazy as Vince Carter, throwing down a dunk here or there. So these explosives may lead to Achilles tendon going through excessive strain, which could then lead to a rupture. Another possible cause is abrupt shifts of movement or changes in direction. This could happen when you're, say, driving to the basket, performing a crossover, and or even pivoting forcefully. These these movements can place considerable amount of stress on the tendon itself, and so that's which leads to the high risk during those movements. Um, Now you know. How do you know if you ruptured your Achilles? Well, oftentimes you'll hear a loud pop, and it kind of feels like you're getting kicked in the back of the leg.
Man, that does not sound fun at all. I mean, so thank you for kind of discussing that a little bit. Now let's continue our discussion on other injuries that can occur while playing basketball. What are some other common injuries you might find in the ankle and the foot that a lot of basketball players are susceptible to?
Yeah, so the most common ankle injury in sports is a lateral ankle sprain. This type of injury occurs when a player rolls their ankle in medical terms. The ankle goes into this kind of supination motion, and inward and downward motion. Um, so now you may be wondering how exactly this type of injury impacts the ankle, especially in the sport of basketball. We have ligaments in the foot that help provide stability to the ankle, which is essential in basketball, as players need to maintain balance and control their dribbling, shooting, or defending. A sprain may stretch or tear these ligaments that ultimately leads to instability in the joint. Ankle sprains can also restrict the range of motion in the affected ankle, most specifically dorsiflexion, which is needed in the preparatory phase of a jump shot. So less range of motion hinders the overall performance of the player. And two, when you do get an ankle injury, you're more susceptible to another one.
Yeah. And so this is exactly where that injury prevention that we all hear about comes into play, and how it's essential to take necessary precautions to reduce that risk of overall ankle injuries in general.
Yeah, and so as you mentioned, the importance of preventative measures to reduce the risk of injury, it reminds me of the study that I came across. So essentially, they sent out almost around 500, they sent surveys to around 500 high school basketball college coaches to find out if they use ankle injury prevention strategies, including like ankle bracing, or if they include any type of ankle injury prevention exercise programs. And so around 37% or so of the coaches encouraged or required their players to use bracing, and 50%, so half, indicated that they did not use any ankle injury exercise programs. And so some of the reasons they listed is that they didn't have enough time, or they didn't have the awareness or expertise to kind of implement that prevention during their exercise programs.
And I think that last part is really important to highlight. You think about coaches at the high school level, and all of them, they want the best for their players. But so many of them, they don't have the time or the resources to be able to implement these preventative measures. They are wearing many different hats, and, being a coach is just one of them. And, some of these kids, they might go on to play at a higher level, whether that be college or above, and they might be able to get those resources and kind of learn about the importance of these preventative measures. But many of them, they're just going to be people like us. They're going to be people who are still really passionate about the game, but we go and we play pickup games on the weekends at the Y. We're not playing Jason Tatum tomorrow night or something. So I think that's really important to think about.
That's exactly right. They grow up and continue to play, and also help to develop the next generation of athletes. So some of them become coaches. Some of them will teach their kids to play one day. I think that is one of the reasons why we are so passionate about this. And basketball is one of those cool sports. You really don't need a lot of equipment. You just have a ball and sneakers and a net, and you can play. So it's a cool sport like that. You don't need to bend over backwards just to start to play. So we want to help the next generation be empowered with the knowledge on how to take care of their bodies while still playing the sport they love. Because ultimately, if you're injured, you're not going to be able to play or really be able to optimize your function.
You're so right. Couldn't have said it better myself. I think this is a perfect time to, take another look at a question about bracing. So we had a listener who wanted to know if they, quote, should buy one of those braces they saw in Walmart the other day so that I don't sprain my ankle when I play.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and one that we definitely get all the time, super frequently asked. So ankle bracing, especially for basketball, has been seen to reduce ankle injuries by about 50 to 85%. So that's pretty significant. And if someone is wearing the brace correctly, it can make a huge impact to lower the risk of potentially getting injured. And on top of this, someone could also incorporate a ankle injury prevention exercise program which also can reduce the risk from about 60 to 85%. And the benefit with that is that you don't have to go to Walmart and purchase anything. That's free. You just have to find a program out there. And the great thing about these programs is that they don't take very much time at all. They only take about 5 to 15 minutes, and you only have to do them about 2 to 3 days a week, 2 to 3 times a week to see the beneficial effects.
So these exercises aren't something that you need to spend hours and hours doing?
No, definitely not. This is a common misconception, like I said, and that misconception is why a lot of people don't do it. It's something that you can easily implement into your program. And everybody is busy, and it's sometimes find it hard to fit the exercise into your schedule. But really putting priority for these preventative measures, and especially if that's something going to the Y, playing pickup ball is something you want to continue doing throughout your life and enjoy that sport. It's want to emphasize how easily these preventative measures can be done.
Awesome. Another question just came in from a viewer. I was at the mall this weekend. I saw a pair of $180 Air Jordans. Will a more expensive shoe keep me from hurting my ankle when I play? I don't have time for a bunch of exercises as I work a corporate job. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so this is a terrific question, and one that before I got into this was wondering myself. So I definitely believe there are numerous misconceptions when talking about shoes, that the higher the price, the better the shoe. This is just not true. Typically, shoes at the top of their price range tend to be loaded with more innovative features that are supposed to work magic, so to speak, and to make you a better athlete. My biggest advice when looking at basketball shoes is to get fitted. Really make sure that you're getting a shoe that fits your foot and that feels comfortable to walk in, just like any sneaker you'd buy to run or to walk or really whatever. So knowing the needs of your ankle is extremely important as well. So I know we touched upon ankle braces, but there's shoes out there that also are high top, so they kind of stabilize the ankle. So if that's something you're looking into because you feel like you roll your ankle a lot, then that could be a very good option. But um, the experts at the store can really help you buy the right shoe for you, especially if you don't have the money to be able to afford a $180 shoe from Nike. So the takeaway message is don't just buy the most expensive name brand shoe because it might not be right for your own foot.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. I mean, a bunch of my buddies, they just follow the crowd and they get the newest, most, popular shoe. And hey, sometimes I just really want a nice looking shoe and I don't really think about the external support aspect of it. So I think it's something that we're all guilty of, you think you're paying more money for it, that you should be getting more from it. So I really appreciate you talking about that a little bit.
It's okay to just want a stylish shoe. Can't blame you. But in terms of injury prevention, shoes with thicker midsoles may lead to ankle instability, especially during lateral shuffling. So, yeah, just things to consider when buying a shoe.
Yeah, and we talked about lateral shuffling. That's important for when you're more on the defensive side of things rather than, just shooting. So that's a good point right there that you just made. Um, are there like any other injury prevention measures that you should be taking to look to reduce the risk of sustaining these ankle injuries we just talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as simple as like 3 words: adequate warm-up routine. So it's been shown that the risk of ankle injury is almost 3 times higher in athletes who don't stretch as part of their warm-up routine. And this is when they're compared to those who do. And when returning to a sport, about 30% of athletes who do injure their ankle change their warm-up routine. And one of the big things that changed was including more stretching of the ankle and calf regions. So this kind of just goes to show that the preventative measures that we talked about earlier, incorporating that into your warm-up is an easy way to apply that to your game.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Keith. Just to add, incorporating a neuromuscular balance training program has also been shown to reduce ankle injuries and improve balance and joint perception. These factors, poor balance, control, and ankle joint position perception, are two of the most predictive factors of an ankle sprain. So a good example would be single leg stance, which is exactly what it sounds like, where you stand on one leg while maintaining balance and control. Some progressions include closing your eyes, adding uneven surfaces like foam. And in regards to returning to sport, it would be beneficial to work on agility ladder drills, kind of working on that cardiovascular endurance, but then also your ability to shift and move quickly, which is something that you definitely need for basketball in terms of just how quick the game can turn over. So this is where you focus more on various footwork patterns and improve agility, coordination, and reaction time in regard to the agility ladder drills.
Awesome. I know that I definitely found this so very informative, and I hope that all of you listeners out there too felt the same way. So again, thank you so much to our two guests, Kimmy and Keith, for providing us all with such valuable information.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you both. You heard it here first here, folks. Having awareness of possible ankle injuries, especially in sport, in this case basketball, and following some of the strategies to prevent those common ankle injuries that we have discussed will go a long way. So our next focus will be on the management and return to sport intervention. So feel free to leave any of the questions or comments you may have yourself. I'm host Rachel, along with co-host Lexi, signing off. Peace.